listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We've received a couple of emails from people who are saying that there seems to be a problem with our internet feed. We apologize for that. Our engineers have checked into it. It is nothing at this end. We are happy to say that all our radio stations, broadcast affiliates, and satellite programming providers are receiving their feeds flawlessly. So Craig and Joe are working their magic to contact the people responsible for the internet streaming to see if we can get this problem resolved, and my deepest apologies. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Michael John Fierro. He's a numerologist. He's also the author of You Know the Name? Look Up Your Numbers. Now, self-knowing and self-understanding and personal empowerment are all gifts contained within this treasure chest that is your name and birth date. Now, come along as Michael John Fierro shares almost 3 decades of experience in ancient esoteric science of numerology. We're going to be talking to John about numerology. We're going to talk to Michael about his book, You Know the Name, Look Up Your Numbers. And Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Great having you with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me, how did you get interested in numerology?
Well, back in 1984, we had a family gathering, and after the gathering, we all got together at one of my siblings' homes. And my younger sister was there, and she started doing this numerology, which at that time I had never heard of. I didn't even know it existed. And the information she provided me was extremely accurate, and it kind of piqued my curiosity because it was based on numbers, and I always was very, very good at math. So I kind of liked the simplicity of it, and again, the accuracy was pretty amazing, and that started me on my journey.
What is the history of numerology, and when was it first used, Michael?
Well, the system I use is known as the Pythagorean system, so that dates back about 2,600 years. Pythagoras is generally considered to be the father of numerology. Mm-hmm. There is another form of it known as the Chaldean system, which would go back to the ancient Chaldeans, so that may date it back even further. And I'd venture a guess that it probably goes back a very, very long time before we were even aware of it. Pythagoras realized that numbers were the language of the universe, and he saw the resonance and the synchronicity with numbers throughout everything that existed.
You know, looking back in time, it marvels me that Pythagoras knew or was able to come up with this formula, and here it is so many thousands of years later, and it's still being used. Where did he get this knowledge from?
Well, that's a good question. You know, if you look at that point of time in history in ancient Greece, there were all those great minds who kind of came in around the same time together. And whether they were from another world or just really connected to source, I'm really unsure. But, when you think back to the time Pythagoras and Socrates and Aristotle and all of those people, and you think of the wisdom that they imparted that still holds true today, their interest and knowledge of metaphysics, and again, Pythagoras with the numbers. it must have been a very interesting point in time in history to have all of those great minds suddenly appear within a very short time of one another.
Yeah. Being a modern-day numerologist, what kind of clients do you have? Do you have corporate clients? Do you have clients who want to use your expertise before they name a child? Do they use it in real estate to see if a certain street number is positive, or if there's going to be problems? Like, the field must be wide open.
Yeah, most of my clients are private individuals who are looking for some insight into themselves, some guidance in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I would never advise someone what to name a child. I believe that's a process that needs to kind of follow its own course.
Right.
I firmly believe that we all choose our name and our birthday and our family of origin, and our soul chooses our name because it knows who it must be and what it needs to do in this lifetime. And I'm not presumptuous enough to think that I should interfere in that process as far as guiding someone in that regard. That child will be named what it needs to be named, whether it's, sometimes people get pregnant and they immediately know what the baby's name is going to be, and it stays that way. There's other instances, I use myself as an example, that back when my mom was pregnant with me, before they knew whether it was a boy or a girl, my parents told everyone that when I was born, my name, if I was a boy, was going to be James Allen Fierro. And when I was born and the nurse walked into the room and asked my mother what the baby's name was, she answered Michael John. So I'm going to say that I guess I was supposed to be Michael John.
I must apologize for calling you John during the intro, because a very good and dear friend of mine, John Michaels, who used to be a talk show host, who has gone to the other side. So I'm sorry, I apologize for calling you John, but it was with the greatest respect.
Well, thank you so much. And but believe me, no offense taken, that happens more times than I can count. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, I use Michael John Fierro as my professional name because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And anytime one alters their name, whether it's shortening their name or a nickname or whatever the case may be, you're changing the vibration and the energy of who you are, and I don't subscribe to that because it can create issues. And, again, I use it for professional reasons.
Sure.
And, again, it's amazing how many times I've been on air with people where they've called me John.
Well, I just took my big felt marker and put Michael in front of me, so I don't do that again. But what happens, Michael, if somebody is adopted and all the details of their birthplace and birth time are not established? Somebody just drops a little parcel from God on the steps of an orphanage or a convent. How does this affect the child's numerology?
Well, my work is based upon on your name the way it is spelled on your birth certificate. Now, some adopted children are adopted immediately, and there's never any other name. They are given the name by the adopted parents. In the instances where someone was named and then adopted, if they have no knowledge of their birth name, then the only name I can read is the name that they were given upon the adoption. But I emphasize that I read the name that's on the birth certificate because there's instances where perhaps someone is born, they don't quite know what the baby is going to be named, and the birth certificate will read baby girl Jones or female Johnson, whatever the case may be. And that's what I'll read. And it's amazing how accurately that depicts the individual, even though, at some point in time, obviously their name was changed to Betty Jones or whatever the case may be.
Right. The numerology of a child is part of it the numerology of the mother and part of the numerology part of the father. Does this combination work into the sum answer of the numerology of the child?
Well, the only part of that equation that would have anything to do with the parents would be the last name. Your surname is the karma of your family of origin. And one of the things that I've always emphasized through all the years that I've been doing numerology is for women that when they're getting married to keep their maiden name. Because when you change your name, you do change your energy. You can create what's known as intrapersonal stress, which is the conflict between the numbers of the birth name and the assumed name. And when you came into this world and you chose your name and your birth date and your family, you chose that family because on some level you were equipped to handle the karma of that last name. If you marry someone, you have no idea what the karma of that gentleman's last name is, and you really have no idea how to handle it. So I'm very much, for lack of a better word, a purist in keeping the name that you were given. And the parents are just there to facilitate, obviously, the birth and the upbringing of that individual.
So what information do you need as a numerologist to give a client a proper numerological reading?
The name as it appears on the birth certificate and the birth date, that's it.
Does it matter where they were born?
No, not at all.
Really? That is truly
No,
fascinating.
because, yeah, and it's interesting. Again, I've been working with numerology now, it's 32 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say with all honesty that my accuracy rate is in the high 90 percentile range. I've been working with it a long time. Obviously, I've developed, a great deal of skill with it and a great deal of ability to interpret. And again, the name that you were given is the name that needs to be looked at, because in the context of your name and your birth date is everything about you. It's your personality, it's your characteristics, it's the lessons you need to learn, it's your strong points, it's your weak points, it's the challenges you'll go through in life, it's the course in life that you need to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you follow it, you can have a great deal of success in your life and be more content. And it also helps you to understand who you are and why you are that way. I've advocated for a long time that the educational system use numerology as a means to better understand their students, because there's so much information that can be gleaned, and it can really help to better teach that individual, and not only that, identify some of the issues in that child's life that will show up later in life that can cause some difficulties. For example, if you have a 7 challenge, now challenges in numerology come out of the birth date, and they're the issues in life. They're the obstacles to wholeness. They're the things that in many instances could drive someone into therapy. So I put a great deal of importance on them because they can have such a negative impact on someone's life. So, for example, if a child has, say, a 7 challenge in the first position, that's a very strong indicator that that child comes out of a home where addictive behavior was part of the dynamic of the family. Now, anyone who's familiar with alcoholics knows that the child of the alcoholic will eventually start to act out. It usually happens as they enter their teen years. I advocate that if you could identify that when the child enters the school system, then you could work with that child accordingly to perhaps circumvent and avoid some of that acting up as he reaches that age, because you could teach him and school him and counsel him properly to understand why he's going through what he's going through.
What other use of numerology would someone have cause to use during their lifetime? Does the numerology change for a person as they get older, or is it constant?
Well, the energy of your name stays the same. What you do go through are different cycles and different periods of time that are identified. In a numerology chart, your life is divided into 3 major cycles, one determined by your month of birth, one by your day of birth, one by your year of birth. So those are the 3 major segments of your life. And then within the context of that, we all go through a never-ending series of 9-year cycles. And, we're connected on Facebook. Every year on your birthday, I send you your personal year report, because each year that changes. And the way to look at a 9-year cycle, the analogy I use is to view it as a garden. that in the 1 year you'll plan and plant that garden, and then in each succeeding year, if you tend to that garden accordingly, the plans that you laid in your first year, you will begin to reap the results in the 8th and 9th year. So there is a cyclical, for lack of a better word, schedule that is attached to numerology, and you can follow it accordingly. And then within all of that, there's also another part of the numerology chart that's known as the essence, which is a year-by-year breakdown of your life based upon the spelling of your name. So every year you're under the influence of certain letters, which total a number, which creates another thing. So within that, I can provide someone a pretty good idea of what's coming up for them in any given year. And I do have clients who get what I call a tune-up every year just to better understand what they're in for in the upcoming year.
How could large companies, especially their human resource department, use numerology to their benefit to better understand employees?
Well, by the simple fact that they would truly understand their employees. I was in the restaurant business for a long time.
Right.
And I used to use it when I hired people, because I could tell the person who may not necessarily be the hard worker, the person who might, be more inclined to be lazy or perhaps have some issues in life that wouldn't make him a good coworker or a good employee. There's a lot of ways you can identify the particular talents. I mean, so you can slot someone into a job that they are better suited for, as opposed to putting them into a position that they really don't have the aptitude for. So there's many ways that it can be used to really kind of hone in on the particular strong points and weak points of any individual. Going back to the educational system, a lot of educational systems use the Myers-Briggs test as a way to understand people. Mm-hmm. But Myers-Briggs only gives you a definition of who that individual may be. Numerology not only gives you that information, but it also tells you why they are that way.
How has numerology bettered your life?
Well,
Now, I would just like to say I don't mean this as a professional numerologist doing numerology for people. I meant for the numerology of Michael John Fierro. How has numerology, the understanding that you have gained, the knowledge you have gained through numerology, helped you?
Well, it certainly helps me in my interpersonal relationships.
Okay.
Not to sound callous, but if I'm going to date someone, usually the first thing I ask is for their name and birth date, so I know what I'm getting into. And if I see that there's elements of that individual that are going to be, more trouble than it's worth, mm-hmm. I will probably not follow through on the dating. And I do use it, and again, I don't want to sound callous, but I do use it to somewhat analyze people, so I do understand who it is that I'm dealing with, and perhaps in some ways help to improve any interpersonal relationships I may have with them, because I can use my knowledge to help them through their tough times or help them better understand themselves, which by improving them, then I can help improve the relationship. And again, when I was in the restaurant business, I used it to kind of screen employees. And, to the professional end of it is, when I discovered that I knew that it was something I truly wanted to do, and through the course of the years, when I finally had the opportunity to be in a position where I could do it full time, I was engaging in something that I had, and I still have great passion for and about.
I can hear that in your voice, and I can certainly understand it. Michael, we have to take a short break at the bottom of the hour for the network news. Please stand by. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Exonation, my guest this hour is numerologist Michael John Fierro. He's the author of You Know the Name, Look Up Your Numbers. His website is www.michaeljohnfierro.com. And once again, that's michaeljohnfierro.com. And if you'd like to send him an email, numerologist.michaelfierro@gmail.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media, X Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to us live Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight on your local radio station, your satellite programming provider, throughout Europe on Radio X, or at www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break with my special guest this hour, Michael John Fierro, numerologist, as we talk to Michael about his book, You Know Your Name, Look Up the Numbers, and much more. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Would you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right. Transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you were able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Jeff Gilson didn't go out looking for adventure, danger, or the answers to most of the controversial political intrigues of the past 30 years. But he found all three when he began investigating the mysterious death of his close friend, Margaret Thatcher's favorite speechwriter. Just an ordinary guy living in a small, sleepy suburb 20 miles outside of London, Jeff's questions provoked a powerful response on both sides of the Atlantic. He was shot at, warned off by the CIA, and formed a close bond with one of Israel's most notorious intelligence officers. Relive Jeff's gripping adventure in his fast-paced book, Maggie's Hammer. Peel away the layers of establishment deception and discover, as Jeff did, that his friend was an assassin with British intelligence, that Great Britain has been America's secret hitman for the past 30 years, and that Princess Diana was not the target in that Parisian tunnel.
All of this and more when you visit www.maggieshammer.com and find the link to buying this explosive book online. More and more ordinary people feel they no longer have control of their lives. Jeff fought back. He asked the difficult questions. He set out to redesign his own destiny, and you can do the same using Maggie's Hammer as your guide. Don't waste a moment. Buy it today. Visit www.maggieshammer.com.
What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com.
Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
The Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. Michael John Fierro is our special guest. His website, www.michaeljohnfierro.com. And he's the author of You Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers. He's a numerologist. And Michael, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Great talking to you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Michael, is there a relationship between numerology and astrology?
Yes, there is a synchronicity. I've done a show with Chris Flisher, who's an astrologer, and we take callers on air, and it's always amazing how I will provide the caller with information based upon their birth date, and then Chris will come on and he will kind of give them the astrological interpretation of that, and more often than not it's similar information. So yes, we kind of consider them sister sciences or cousins, whatever the case may be. But yes, a good numerology reading will certainly coincide with a good astrological reading.
We've had the pleasure of having Chris on the show a number of times. In fact, he's scheduled within the next month, so I'll say hi to him for you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Chris, good guy.
He is. He truly is. You gave us an example of how you use numerology when you're meeting somebody. If their name and their date of birth doesn't jive, well, then, you're forewarned. What other aspects of daily life could listeners use numerology for?
Well, you mentioned something about houses. Your house number can certainly, the single digit of your house number will certainly give you some indications about the type of environment that will exist, the colors that would be in sync with the vibration, and also to a degree some of the difficulties you may run into with the home. Take the number 4. Number 4 home, one of the trouble spots you would want to look for are cracks and leaks around doors and windows, and especially things of a structural nature like the foundation. If you have a house number that's a 7, you really want to check the plumbing, because 7 has a resonance with water. So water and plumbing and anything to do with water could be a problem issue. So there is a way to use it in that regard. You can use it, again, to determine what color you might want to paint your home. And really, anything that has a name or a number can be looked at from a numerological perspective. Let's say you're going to start a business.
Yes.
You might want to, that's one instance where I would certainly help someone choose a name, because if you want your business name to reflect the ideals behind your business or the philosophy or whatever the case may be, then you would want to choose a name that reflects that which you're looking to portray.
If let's say, for example, your house number is 124 or 147. If you wanted to change the numerological value of your house to give it a better numerological formula, could you add a number to the front or the back?
Well, you could, but I don't think you can really change your address. Changing your address would be the equivalent of changing your birth date. You can't really do it.
I see.
How would your mail ever be delivered? They'd be looking for 147.
Well, no, I don't mean change it that way, but just by on the front of your house putting a number on a piece of cardboard in front of the number, so it really doesn't affect the actual address of the property.
You could, but in my mind, that would be somewhat similar to. Like when I do a chart reading,
right.
And I'll use myself as an example, my name on my birth certificate is Michael John Fierro Jr.
Right.
But I don't read Jr. when I do numerology readings because Jr. is about the name. It's not the name. So to add an additional number in that regard would really kind of make it about the number and not about the location. So I personally, I don't think there would be anything to be gained by that because it would kind of be like masquerade. Again, I use the equivalence of changing your name. The way I describe name changes is that it's the equivalent of wearing a Halloween costume.
Okay.
You can dress up as Superman. People will see you as Superman, but underneath the costume is you, Rob McConnell.
Right. Gotcha.
And you never go away. So your core energy, your core energy of your name and your birth date never ever leaves you. So no matter what you change your name to, no matter how many times you change your name, your core energy never ever leaves. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so against changing things like that, because all you're doing is really creating layers of confusion for yourself.
I love that because, I am Rob McConnell. That's who I was born as. That's who I'm going to die as. And yet so many people in the media business change their names. And right. I don't understand why they do that. For one thing, people will always find out that your name has been changed or that you're using a stage name. And it just takes away from the credibility that you're trying so hard to build up. It's just like people who use pen names. I don't know why they use pen names. Why not use your real name? Because if you're going to write something using a fictitious name, no more credibility.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. And it's interesting because many times in lectures, one of the examples I use to demonstrate, the pitfalls of name changes is Hollywood, California.
Yeah.
Hollywood, California is filled with people who don't use their real names, although that isn't as prevalent as it used to be. Mm-hmm. And so you have a bunch of people pretending to be someone else and their job is to pretend to be someone else. And again, name changes can create a great deal of conflict and confusion and whatnot. And when you look at Hollywood with the people with multiple marriages, with the alcoholism, the drug problems, and all the inherent problems that seem to surround the celebrity lifestyle, excuse me, that's a great example of, again, the dangers of doing that to yourself.
When you go out and you do lectures and you go to the different events that you attend, what are some of the most common questions that you're asked by the public?
Well, one of the things that's so interesting, Rob, is considering that how old numerology is and how long it's been around. Mm-hmm. It is somewhat, as a client described it this morning, somewhat obscure. So a lot of the questions that I answer are about numerology. How does it work? Why does it work? So many of the questions that you're asking me right now. But people do have a great interest in it, and of course everybody wants to know about themselves. And usually when I do a lecture, I'll do one of two things. I'll either pick someone out of the audience and do a sample reading to the entire class so they can see how it works, or I'll do the birth name, the birth date stuff, so everybody gets a little taste of it. But most of the questions tend to be of the informational nature. Again, numerology has never been mainstreamed. It's a difficult science to mainstream. You can print a horoscope column in a newspaper every day. It's very vague. It's very general. If you read 6 newspapers, they'll all be different. Mm-hmm. Numerology, because there's too many other factors involved, you can't really generalize. So that's, I think, one of the things that's kind of kept it in obscurity is the fact that it hasn't been mainstream because there's no way to really generalize it in a fashion that would work. And believe me, I've thought about doing it, but I just can never find the way that wouldn't have it lose integrity. And I'm very deeply committed to keeping the integrity of numerology at a high level.
How has numerology affected your views on metaphysics and spirituality?
Well, I get to, again, quoting Pythagoras, where everything resonates to numbers. One of the I guess, drawbacks, if I can use that word, for me is I can't look at anything without doing a chart on it. But I do see that, the universal language is numbers. Everything we see, feel, touch, hear can all be reduced to a mathematical equation. When they put a man on the moon, it was a mathematical equation. So numbers are a constant. And by understanding that, and then by understanding the vibration attached to each number, you can really help to better understand. And again, there's that level of synchronicity that is attached to it that, again, very valid.
I have always held that this existence of ours is a binary, 0 and 1, because no matter what formula you use, it's based on 0 and 1s. Now, being a binary existence, 0 and 1s, I relate it to the rest of the world. For example, up, down, left, right, in, out, black, white, good, evil, male, female, and so on. How does this play in your world of astrology?
Well, let's see, how can I answer that question? Every number has positive and negative attributes.
Right.
So in that regard, every number does have a binary quality. In my book, in the description of each number, the numbers 1 through 9, or actually the numbers 1 through 9, and then 11, 22, 33, and 44, there are positive attributes and there are negative attributes. Mm-hmm. And my experience shows that the more human you are, the more you will align with the negative column of attributes. The more spiritual, the more metaphysical you are, the more you will align with the positive. Thankfully, most humans kind of tend to be a mixture of the two. So if in regards to a binary system, there is that, and everything. You can't see light without dark.
Right.
The very nature of our world requires opposites to exist. Because you wouldn't know love without knowing hate. You wouldn't know light without knowing dark, whatever the case may be. You have to have the antithesis to really understand what it is.
How long does it take for someone to become a numerologist? Do you teach courses?
Yeah, I haven't taught one in a long time, but I am getting ready to take an extended road trip beginning sometime in the spring, and my intent is to travel around the country and do lectures and book signings and classes wherever. How long does it take? I mean, quite honestly, if you bought my book and read it cover to cover and kind of did charts as you went along, by the end of it, you would know enough to do a chart. And I knew a little bit in the beginning, and 30 some odd years of working with it has greatly expanded my knowledge of it and increased my depth of understanding. And many times, seeing a connection on a page between two numbers in working with a client, and then asking the question, does this situation exist? Then it turns the switch for me. Okay, that number with that number represents this condition, and then it gets pretty much proven out every time I see that condition. So, again, it's one thing's for certain: numerology is a lot easier to learn than astrology. But as with anything, practice makes perfect, and the more you do it, the better you become.
Would you say that astrology or numerology is much more accurate than astrology?
I'm not going to say it's more accurate because, again, a good astrologer who really knows this stuff is going to be spot on, just as a good numerologist who knows this stuff is going to be spot on. The one difference, the one delineation that I would make is this. Numerology is based on the numbers 1 through 9, and it's finite. There are no other numbers between 1 and 9, and the chances of us ever discovering a new number between 5 and 6 are absolutely non-existent. Astrology is affected by the fact that if they find a new planet, it changes things.
Right.
So there is that one piece of astrology that has the potential or the possibility of being affected by the discovery of something new. And again, with numerology, that's not going to happen. And the only other place where I could find a place where I would say numerology might be more effective would be in the case of twins. If you have a set of twins who are born within a minute or so of one another, their birth date is going to be the same, and their time of birth is going to be close enough that there will probably be no changes in the chart. So that being the case, how does one explain astrologically the difference between a set of twins? Because no two twins are exactly the same. With numerology, the difference comes from the name. If you have a set of twins and one is Elizabeth Ann Jones and her sister is Mary Sue Jones, they're going to be very different people. And that's where numerology kind of fine-tunes it to that level where you can really understand the difference between a set of twins. And I'll use this as another example. I have a person I've known. I went through school with her, and when she was born, her parents named her Marilyn, and it was on the birth certificate, Marilyn, and I won't give her last name. And the grandmother showed up and said, what are you doing? You can't name the baby Marilyn. The baby needs to be named Mary Ellen. So literally on her birth certificate, they drew a line through Marilyn and wrote in Mary Ellen. Well, I got to know her quite well about 15, 20 years ago. And I could tell when she was being Marilyn, and I could tell when she was being Mary Ellen, because those two names created two different vibrations for her, and there were definitely times where she moved from one to the other depending on the situation or the circumstance.
Fascinating.
So in the case of a person with a name, that's where numerology has a little bit of a leg up on as opposed to an astrological reading.
Michael, you and I have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you ever so much for coming on. I'd love to have you back on in the future. And let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and where they can get your book.
Well, if you go to my website, michaeljohnfierro.com, there's plenty of information about me. You can book a reading through that. And you can also buy my book online. And if you purchase my book through my website, there's no shipping. It's free shipping and handling. And not only do you get a signed copy of the book, you get a 1-hour DVD of a TV interview I did, so you'll hear me orally and visually explain numerology. And I will also do the chart calculations for someone, so all they need to do as they're reading the book is refer to their chart and then find the appropriate explanation within the book.
Michael, thanks so much for joining us. Take care of yourself, and, this was a great hour, very informative. And once again, X Zone Nation, if you'd like more information about our guest of this hour, Michael John Fierro, visit his website, www.michaeljohnfierro.com. The name of his book is, all right, you've got your pencils and paper ready. Good. I'll give you another second. Okay. The name of his book is, You Know the Name, Look Up Your Numbers. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com on all social media sites and pages, X Zone Radio TV. and our main website where you can listen to the X Zone 724 365 as well as the live show, www.xzoneradiotv.com. I am Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.